Hello and welcome to Bloke on the Range, and I apologise for the noise because we are literally right next to a range with a few hundred people shooting full power rifles. So we're working with what we've got. Now I'm very lucky to be able to present you the contents of this pack here. I'm very, very thankful to its owner for bringing it along to let me show it off, and in fact to let me shoot with it. Now what we're going to do in this video is talk about it a bit and show you it. And then in the next video, we're going to do an official zeroing practice and then shoot it some at 300 meters, which I'm really looking forward to. It's been quite a while. So, what is in this bag here is one of the few semi-auto, factory-made semi-auto SA80s, L85A1. Now, a little bit of background on the rifle. I'm sure most people know about it. This was the last design of Enfield, and it's a horror bag. Sorry guys, it's an absolute horror bag. Now, basically, the story behind it is that, well, Enfield designed the EM2. They got a bit of a bee in the bonnet of the War Department, later Ministry of Defence. They wanted a bullpup. They really wanted a bullpup. They ended up adopting the FN FAL as the L1A1 SLR in the meantime, and then from about the 1960s onwards, Enfield was trying to prototype a series of small bore-ish, it was 4.85mm bullpup rifles. The prototype, the original prototype of which was literally a bullpupped AR-18. So it is not unfair to say that this is an AR-18 rammed up the jacksie of an EM2. I think it's fair enough. Now, as the series of prototypes went on, what's interesting is they started with literally an AR-18 that they'd bought and bullpupped. Some of the intermediate prototypes went a bit away from that. Caliber was changed from 223 Remington to 4.85. Later, after NATO standardization, we were on 5.56 NATO, 223 Remington to all intents and purposes. The prototypes went away from the AR-18 and then went back to it. And when I get this apart, you'll see that this is very AR-18 on the inside. Now, most people are aware this was plagued with difficulties during initial trials, and they kept adjusting the definitions of the trials so as to make it pass. So in doing mean rounds between failures tests, they sort of redefined what a failure was. I mean, a stoppage to most people is it doesn't cycle properly, doesn't eject, it stovepipes, it fails to feed, anything like that. They redefined it as anything that the soldier can't himself fix. Oh, we've got a bit of a problem with firing pin breakages. Why don't we just write on paper that when they go on operations there'll be a spare firing pin? Therefore, it's something he can fix, so it doesn't count anymore. Use in Gulf War I, people were covering all the slots just to keep as much cack out of it. Another interesting tidbit was that people on joint ops with Canadians armed with Demarco C7s, which are basically M16s, were completely bemused as to why the Brits at every opportunity were taking their rifles apart to clean them, because this one was so incredibly dirt sensitive that basically you were cleaning it all the time. Now, how did this end up? Largely politics. Enfield was in the process of being privatized, needed a product, needed a market. Ironically, given how badly this performs in sand and dust, there was a commercial manual made in Arabic for the Middle East. Really would be sort of the last people looking to adopt something like that. And ultimately, after British Aerospace, which acquired Royal Ordnance, was acquired itself by HK. HK took one look at it and went, why don't we film it in slow motion and look at what is happening? And basically, the Germans, the very clever Germans, got a high-speed camera, which is something that the overpromoted draftsman of Royal Ordnance had failed to do, looked at what was going on and spotted what was going on and fixed it. Now it works, at least. And I'm going to annoy a lot of the British Army SA80 fanboys by explaining exactly why I don't like this gun and why some of my fundamental problems with it were not fixed by HK, because they're nothing to do with it working, they're fundamental ergonomic choices. So, first of all, what we're going to do is take it apart. Then after I put it back together, I will show you some of the interesting ergonomic choices. So basically, ergonomic choices made for the benefit of the factory, not for the soldier. And then in the next video, we're going to zero it and shoot it. So, if Monsieur Le Chap would like to bring the camera in, as another German says, let me show you its features. So, if I let it forward, it's a bullpup. We've got up the front, we've got a little hatch to get at the gas system. It's got a trigger in the normal place, magazine in the wrong place, and a unique scope rail. Now, safety catch is a push button here. Note I can get it off easily with my finger, but I have to move my other hand, or move this hand completely around to put it back on. Cocking handle's on the right hand side. It's got a dust cover. Now, on early ones of these, the plastic was pretty poor and it failed in ice and snow. Pops itself open. That is the hold open lever. We'll get onto that in a moment. Magazine release is about the only ergonomic thing on it. Falls relatively well under the thumb there. This one is lacking its shroud. This particular one is Nottingham 1989, and it hasn't got all of the full mods by the late A1. The trigger here, the very, very early triggers were just sort of bent wire. This is a die-cast setup, and the later ones have a V-shaped back to cut through ice and snow. This one, if you get ice and snow caught behind it, it stops working. Good job, guys. The lack of shroud here, for a rifle, when I put the sling on, you'll see, is designed to be carried across the chest. You can imagine that bouncing off pouches and dropping the magazine while you're moving from one position to another. Sling goes into that loop there and that loop there, and I'll put it on in a bit once we've got it back together. There's a few artifacts of the fact that it was originally intended that 10% of the rifles would be left-handed. You can actually put the front loop on this side, and the rear sling loop pushes through. Never put into practice, but I believe Ian has filmed one of the prototypes, which is cool. SUSAT sight on here. It's on a rail. There's 3 positions. If I loosen the clamping screws here, there's a little catch there. If I pull that up, we can take it off. You've got 3 different positions there. There's no provision for lengthening or shortening the butt, so you can put the sight in 3 different positions depending on your eye relief. And this scope has a ridiculously short eye relief. Let me tighten the nuts back up. Drink. And then one of the other problems is that it's not clearly described in the manual how to ensure that it's absolutely tight. It's a bit obscure. You have to know what it's talking about. The lateral adjustment is with a pair of opposed screws here, and if this screw isn't done up properly, it will wobble like this. And before we shoot it, we'll make sure that is all good and proper. Last control there, that is the bolt release, which falls under the sling. The fire selector would have been here on that axis. And what's interesting about this one is, because this one was built as a semi-auto, they've welded an extra plate of material on there to stop you trying to fit a fire selector. So, stripping. Before you do anything on this, safety catch, change lever. Obviously there's no change lever. Make sure it's cocked. We then have 2 push pins. 1 push pin. Second push pin up here. Now this one has 3 positions. In. This one's not even being retained. It should be being retained all the way out and not quite out, and you need to put this in the not quite out position, otherwise we place spring mortar. Now hopefully I've got this in the right place, so we shall just finagle it until there we go. I'm going to use British terminology. You might have spotted change lever is what Americans call a fire selector. So we separate the trigger mechanism housing, or TMH, from the body, and then in here it's all looking pretty conventional. Now we put our hand over the top, we pull that pin all the way, and then we take out the guide rods. Now on the AR-18 there's 2 separate two separate guide rods with two springs. Here they put a spring on a separate separate rod, so just something else for dirt and cack to get in. We can then, just so that you can see it, so we can then pull this back. When we get it to here, we can take out the cocking handle, and then that comes out the top. So this should look familiar to anyone who's ever had any form of AR-18 rifle out there. Utterly conventional. And actually we have the flaw in the design here. Now, an AR-18 is unlocked by about there. Here we've got extra dwell time before the bolt turns in the cam track to unlock. This seems to be part of the cause of some of the issues, although it's something that I don't think HK fixed. Now, if we want to get this down even further, we go to the cleaning kit. Right there. We take out the very clever combi tool, and we push out the cam pin, and then this just comes apart like any AR-15, AR-18, anything like that, and that's it. That goes back together fairly easily, and there's a warning in the manual to make sure you get the cam stud in, because if you don't, the rifle is in an unsafe condition. Good job, guys. It's been quite a while since I've done this. So that goes back in there with the bolt the right way around. Firing pin retains it, and then stud. To be honest, that stud there is better than an AR-15 split pin. So if we want to put this back together, we come to another fun bit in the design. If the bolt is back, you can actually jam it solid. Lots of cadets did that. So you want to make sure it's forward, drop it in, let it forward to that point, then the cocking handle goes in, goes forward like that, and then we put the op rod setup back in, push it down, remembering that this is made of wriggly tin, so sometimes they don't fit that well. There we go. And then here you can see the different positions here. So I've got the pin. The pin has to be in its intermediate position to retain that. Let's have a look at the TMH here, the lower. There's some sort of basic buffer there, and it's classic hammer fired. The fire selector is up here because that's where it is on an AR-18 mechanism. All they've done is just brought it back, and then the trigger is just connected with a great long linkage like that to the hammer. There we go. So if we put this back together, it's kind of tight, this one. That surround of the safety catch there goes into a sort of C-shaped groove there, and we've got to line three things up, and then push the pins back in, wriggle it until the tolerances are taken up, and then check it works. Yep. Now, if you were stripping this for cleaning, I would have taken the gas system out while the rest of it was out, but what I'll do here is I will just hook it back. Note, I use my left hand, reach over, hook it back with my finger, and then press the hold open lever with my thumb. So that's taken the tension off the gas system, which looks like that, he says, as he's stuffed it up. So what we do here is we pull that out there, the operating rod, gas cylinder, and then we need a tool. Here the gas port has several settings. This is on normal, and then with the combi tool, we've got, where's it gone? Excess, and then off, like that. And it's very important when you take this out that you make sure that that stud doesn't point up or down. So we push it in, get it retained and then out it comes, like that. The point of this drill bit is to clean in there. The point of that little knobble there is to clean those holes. You can also use the same drill bit to clean in down there. Well, this one seems a bit tight, but certainly on the one I was issued it was. It went. And then that reamer there goes into the gas goes into the gas cylinder, sorry, to clean. So then to put it back together, making sure this isn't up or down, and because otherwise it can risk getting caught in there, we push it in, push it through, make sure it's in N. We put the gas cylinder back on, and then this is the fiddly bit, because this is tight and has to get in a hole you can't see. Now, this should be on while I'm doing this. This is the bit that I always struggled with. There we go. So there you go. Now, accessories. In the cleaning kit, we have not only the combi tool, we have brush. This is a general purpose brush for brushing stuff. We've got breech chamber brush. We've got an oil bottle, a pull through, a couple of sections of rod. We've got some patches and some Scotch-Brite. Yes, they were issued Scotch-Brite to scrub the steel parts of the rifle, and you often came across barrels that had had the finish scrubbed off. The gas systems were scrubbed to death. There was the shiny ring of metal, the famous shiny ring of metal that we were told when we were playing student soldiers in the university OTC to put some Scotch-Brite on the end of this drill bit and rag the crown. Yes, not so much fun. This particular rifle has come also with a set of iron sights, which replace the Susat. Very British style of sights there. And here we've got a big, nice big sort of 5mm short range hole and a longer range hole, and it's 200 and not specified. Probably 100 and 200. That's the front sight. That goes on the gas block there. And I grew up with the Cadet GP, so we had sights like this, although the rear sight was not quite the same. Replaces the Susat. Magazines are NATO Stanag compatible. They're particularly bad. They're very, very thin and easily deformed, and that follower shouldn't be like that. Look how sloppy they are. If we compare it to an American one, random American one is much less sloppy. We had endless trouble with these. And then the final thing is the Sling. Which is fairly clever. Goes on like this. There. 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 And this is basically a 2-point to 1-point convertible sling, which, whoops, pulls on the wrong bit. Just tie a knot in it. So the idea of this sling is that you can have the rifle on you, you can have the rifle across your middle, and then to shoot, you can unhook that, and then you've got free movement of the rifle, but if you drop it, it'll hang down like that. This is fairly clever. Now we've got it like this, have a safe direction over there. Let's just look at some of the manual of arms, all to be done with the left hand. So before you do anything, say we were going to load, we're going to safety catch, change lever, which is under the sling, there, see? All of these controls here are under the sling. Safety catch, change lever, cock. So now the rifle's ready to fire. So we'd carry on, bang, 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 unload, safety catch, change lever, magazine off, cock hook. I apologise, I learned this in 1999. If the manual's changed in the meantime, I'm sorry. Check it's clear. Bolt release under the sling. Aim shot in a safe direction, safety catch, change lever, dust cover, and then check the sights are set on 300. Like that. And everything you do ends up with safety catch, change lever, dust cover, sights. So, I mean, my big ergonomic bugbear with this is that the controls are scattered all over it, and that whatever you do, you have to be dancing over the thing with your left hand. Safety catch, change lever, dust cover, sights, cock, hook. The stoppage drills, it's always cock, hook, and look all the time, and it's kind of heavy. Its point of balance, even without ammo in it, let the bolt forward, is a long way to the back. One thing that I do like about it, I mentioned this in a TFB vid, is that for a bullpup, its forend is actually quite long. So actually you can get a decent grip on it, you're not tucked up tight. So there you go, that's about the extent of it. As I said, the modified ones, the HK modified ones, do actually work. However, the controls are still scattered all over. One of the prototypes had a thumb selector, safety catch and thumb selector, but this was cheaper. It was cheaper to do it like this, so they did it like that. That's it basically. It's still heavy, it's still got controls scattered all over it, and yeah, that's about the extent of it. So what I'm going to do now is sign off this video, then we're going to prep for a zeroing practice and shoot one. So hang around for that. So thank you very much to the owner of this rifle who's over there somewhere. Thank you so much for all our patrons who helped to make this kind of content possible, and see you again sometime. Bye.